Hey, what's going on everyone? Greg here, and I've been using the most powerful MacBook Air for around the past 60 days now. Yeah, I'm saying that right, the most powerful MacBook Air, the version with the quad-core i7 processor, and after doing some research and looking through YouTube to see if there's any other videos on it, I really can't find all too much. I might be the only idiot who actually bought the quad-core i7 version to see just how powerful the MacBook Air could get. Now, I did do one other video on this i7 MacBook Air, but that was very early on when it was released, and we were doing a lot of benchmarks in that video. But I actually have a lot of real-world usage with this machine, and there's also been some other products that have come out since I did that video, namely the refresh of the 2020 MacBook Pro, and more specifically, the $1,300 version, which still has the 8th generation processor, which I think maybe some people might want to take a look at over this i7 MacBook Air. Well, in this video, we're going to find out together if the i7 MacBook Air is worth it, or if it's just a needless and expensive upgrade, and did Greg waste even more money than he usually does. Now, even though we are dealing with the i7 version, this is a full review of the MacBook Air, so let's get some basic stuff out of the way first. The MacBook Air is the lightest laptop currently in Apple's lineup, weighing in at 2.8 pounds and has that iconic wedge-shaped design. That slope design gets thinner as you get towards the front of the Air and gets thicker and heavier in the rear. This design element makes the laptop easy to pick up from the front, as much of the weight is distributed in the back, and also really easy to hold from the bottom left or right corner with one hand, making this laptop kind of a fun laptop to pick up and take with you even as you roam around the house, browsing the web, listening to music, or watching videos. On the right side, you'll find a headphone jack, and on the left side, you'll find two Thunderbolt 3 USB-C ports, and those are the only ports available. And one of them is also designated to charging, meaning in reality, if you're powering up your MacBook Air at the same time, you only have one external port to work with. Thankfully, these Thunderbolt 3 ports output lots of data, meaning not only can you hook up this Air to a 5K or even Apple's Pro Display XDR, which has a 6K resolution, but you can also buy adapters just like this to easily get all your ports back. This is an Anker USB-C adapter, which they sent to me, and I shouted it out in the last MacBook Pro video, and you guys seem to like it. It just plugs into the side of your laptop, and it gives you one Thunderbolt 3 port, one USB-C port, two USB-A ports, an SD card slot, a micro SD card slot, and an HDMI port. This video isn't sponsored by Anker in any way, but if you need a good solution to get those ports back, I'll leave an affiliate link to this adapter in the description below. The Air also comes with a Retina display, which is an IPS LCD panel with a resolution of 2560 by 1600, and features Apple's True Tone display technology. Overall, it's a pretty good display with really good pixel density, great viewing angles, although it does suffer one weakness that the MacBook Pro doesn't have. It doesn't have the P3 wide color spectrum. That P3 wide color gamut on the Pro models allows you to view even more nuanced color differences on the display. The MacBook Air's display also only goes up to 400 nits of brightness, rather than the 500 nits found on the Pro model. The brightness really hasn't affected my habits of using it all too much. I think the display gets plenty bright enough for indoor use, and I don't really use my laptops outdoors all too much, but your mileage may vary. The lack of P3 color is also something that's probably not a big deal to most consumers, especially those in the market for the Air, and it's hard to notice the difference unless you put it side by side against the Pro's better display. Speakers are kind of like that as well. On their own, the Air has decent speakers, but put them against the new 4-port 13-inch MacBook Pro, or dare I say the amazing 16-inch MacBook Pro, and they don't really hold a candle. That's not to say they're bad though. I was more than happy enough to watch videos, listen to podcasts, and play music through the inbuilt speakers. But once you start listening on the 16-inch, it's kind of hard to go back to anything else. They're that good. One of the biggest new additions to this model is the new Magic Keyboard, which continues to be a joy to type on during the longer period that I have been using it. And my views are pretty much the same as last time. The keys have good enough travel, stability, and are very springy and responsive, making them great for touch typists and also burst typists like myself. The Air also retains the physical function key row and doesn't have the touch bar that the Pro models have. This again is something that doesn't bother me all too much, and there's some people who will prefer the physical function keys, which now is an exclusive feature on Apple's lowest end laptops. Touch ID in the top right corner is also useful for unlocking the laptop quickly and granting me more secure options for Safari autofill passwords, password managers, and getting into my system administrator without having to type in my password. However, after spending time using the iPad Pro with its brand new Magic Keyboard, Face ID is so much faster on that device. It activates as soon as you flip the iPad Pro open and makes more sense on a screen that's usually propped right in front of your face. So I, for one, am hoping that this is the last generation of Touch ID on the Mac and that we will soon be moving over to Face ID on all of Apple's laptops. Another thing I'm really hoping to see the last of is the MacBook Air's webcam. The MacBook Air's webcam is just downright bad. The more time I spend using it, the more time I hate it. It is just atrocious and often leaves the picture quality looking grainy, even in decent lighting. The inbuilt microphones, on the other hand, are actually pretty good. They're pretty great for using on video calls, as well as using the Voice Memos app to leave voice notes. Nailed that take. I nailed that take. I'm gonna keep that in. I'm keeping this in. All right, let's get to our sponsor for this video, Werther's Original Candy. Nah, I'm just kidding. Werther's didn't sponsor this video, but they did send me a bunch of candy. You can see it on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, by the way, for really great content where I discuss Werther's Original with their caramel hard candies and also their vanilla cream options. Now, a big reason why you're watching a video on the i7 version of the MacBook Air is probably to find out if that $250 CPU upgrade is worth the price. Because like I said in the beginning of my video, this is the most powerful MacBook Air you can buy with its quad-core i7 processor. Well, for basic tasks like web browsing using Safari with 12 tabs open and 3 windows in total with a Twitter client open, Bear Notes open, Messages, the podcast app open, and playing a 1080p YouTube video resulted in snappy performance. These are likely tasks people who are purchasing the MacBook Air will be doing: very basic web browsing, social media, word processing, and media consumption. Overall, fans remained quiet while I was conducting tasks like this. However, at times, you could hear the fan whirl quite a bit. Heat on the bottom was also good. The laptop never got warm during my sessions when I was using it like this, except for maybe the topmost region where the fan blows out heat. And that was just a little warm, not scorching hot like my 13-inch MacBook Pro, which could get quite uncomfortable when I was using it on my lap. Battery life in a situation like this was also pretty positive. I was able to squeeze around 9 hours of battery life out of the MacBook Air, although that is 2 hours less than Apple's 11-hour claim on their website. Your mileage may vary though, depending on what types of apps you have open and how bright you set your display. However, we really shouldn't be giving any credit for a $1,250 laptop handling the tasks I just mentioned. That should be expected even if this is an Ultrabook and not the MacBook Pro. Those really weren't demanding tasks. Well, I thought I would try out some more power-demanding tasks like gaming. Now, this laptop isn't meant for gaming, but I did an entire dedicated video of gaming on the MacBook Air, which I will leave a link up here for even more details and if you want even more information on it. But basically, all you really need to take away from that video is that the Air can really only handle casual titles or ones that are a few years older. And even then, you ideally want to be playing them on low settings with the resolution turned down. So even though Apple promises up to an 80% graphics increase, the Intel Iris Plus graphics still isn't a dedicated graphics card, and the MacBook Air really isn't meant for gaming. Now, I think one of the bigger questions for people watching this video right now is, can the i7 MacBook Air start to do some of those more demanding tasks like video editing, or should you go and spend an extra $50 for the 13-inch MacBook Pro? Well, in my 10-minute 4K ProRes export test, which I ran on every single MacBook currently in the lineup, even with the Core i7, the MacBook Air came in dead last in export times. It took a full 15 minutes and 47 seconds to finish exporting the 4K video. Compare that to the entry-level MacBook Pro. Again, it is $50 more, and that finished the export at 8 minutes and 48 seconds. So the MacBook Air took a whole 7 minutes longer than the entry-level MacBook Pro. I'll repeat it again, a $50 difference between these two models, a $50 difference. And that test really kind of does put this all into question. Who is this i7 MacBook Air for when for $50 you can get a laptop that will perform better when you're doing tasks that require sustained clock speed, and you also get some additional benefits like a better display. One of the big reasons for that difference in power is the cooling system in the MacBook Air, which is well documented by now that it's not doing much. A single fan in the top left corner, not connected to a heatsink, makes this a poor option for pros who need the highest end performance. However, this isn't called the MacBook Pro, it's called the MacBook Air, and the laptop really is designed for the earlier example of basic tasks that most laptop users would use it for. And as nerdy and invested as I am in getting the fastest render times and just having the best tuned computer possible, I think the target audience for the MacBook Air isn't really trying to do those things, or they're not trying to do them on a frequent enough basis. Customers of the MacBook Air are probably trying to decide how much power is enough for you to have 15 tabs open, write a paper, take a laptop on a business meeting, give a PowerPoint or Keynote presentation, launch Excel, numbers, browse Twitter, edit photos with the built-in Photos app, maybe play around with GarageBand or iMovie, and maybe necessarily not spend all day editing in Final Cut Pro 10 or Logic Pro 10. The Air is designed as a thin and light ultrabook that handles those types of tasks better because it prioritizes the features those subset of users would want. Better battery life, lower fan noise, and making sure the laptop isn't heating up as much when it's on their lap. It's not designed to handle heat for long periods of times, and it only ramps up the processor for a few seconds before it comes back down thanks to its inferior thermal design. However, while that's fine for the cheaper dual-core i3 and quad-core i5 version of this laptop, don't forget that we are spending an extra $250 to outfit this with a quad-core i7 processor. So if you're spending $1,250, you're probably someone that wants better performance. And while maybe you have a very specific workflow that could take advantage of a slight fast burst in performance, I think most of those users would benefit from the better sustained clock speeds of the MacBook Pro by just spending an extra $50. Okay, so do I recommend the i7 version of the MacBook Air? No, I don't. I think you would be better going for the less expensive i5 version if you're the type of user who wants a MacBook Air. That way you're saving $150, and the i5 version, because of the thermal design, it should be pretty close in performance to the i7 anyway, because again, it really can't sustain those higher clock speeds. With that extra $150, you can either save it and put it in your pocket, or you can choose to spend it on another upgrade. You could double the RAM from 8 gigabytes to 16 gigabytes, or you could go up from storage. This starts at 256 gigabytes, so for $200 more, you could go up to 512 gigabytes. For users with the most basic needs, I would really recommend just picking up the i3 version. Again, that's if you plan to spend zero time doing anything like photo or video editing. If you live mostly in a web browser, I think the i3 version will be just fine. And if you want better performance, if you were thinking maybe if I get the i7 version, I'll be able to edit videos at a better performance, I would go with the 13-inch MacBook Pro. The base model is just $50 more, and you will get a much better experience. All right, everyone, hopefully this video helped you out. If it did, make sure you leave me a like. If you want to see more from my channel, well, make sure you're subscribed. Also, be sure to let me know what you think of the MacBook Air in the comments below. Do you agree with me that the i7 version really doesn't have an audience, and that most people would be better off going with either the i5 and saving some money, or just upgrading to the 13-inch MacBook Pro? Also, if you do want to buy the MacBook Air, I will leave an affiliate link, but I will leave it for the i3 and i5 version, which I do recommend. And then, of course, I will also leave one for the 13-inch MacBook Pro, which again, I recommend over the quad-core i7 MacBook Air. Also, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.